Hello there and welcome to this Fall of the Samurai Abridged campaign where I'll be commentating on the highlights and most important moments from my playthrough with the faction known as Saga. Don't know anything about them, I only picked this faction, well mainly because I've played as all the other ones before, so I decided to do this one. I was originally thinking of moving up to the other end of the map or something in order to do some sort of gimmick campaign. But we're playing in the Master of Strategy mod and it proves to be more difficult and hardcore than I expected, so actually we're not really going to be pulling any gimmicks, we need to actually try in this campaign. We start off at war with Tsushima, an island to our north. So our first project will be to put together some ships to ensure we have naval dominance, so that we can get an army over to their island or stop them bringing an army down to the mainland. Aside from that, we have no real diplomatic relations with anyone, although everybody is hostile to us to start the campaign. I think that's part of the mod. So we do need to worry about being attacked on the mainland. Luckily, our starting territory is a big choke point, so it's kind of easy to defend. So yes, I'm going to spend the first few turns putting our navy together and making an army slowly but surely. That army is going to be mostly melee units because we don't really have the capacity to recruit things like line infantry. We can grab a couple of units over time, but for the most part we're going to spam samurai just to get things going. We get some action in the very first turn because the Tsushima navy comes down to attack our navy. I thought they couldn't attack us because we were sitting in port, but I guess that's not the rules. I don't actually remember how this game works. As you can see, we both have one corvette, they have one gunboat, we have two gunboats, so we have a slight advantage. The balance bar doesn't really give us an advantage because gunboats are useless. One thing they can do in this mod though is lay down sea mines before the battle, so you can see I've got this line of explosives vaguely in the path the enemy need to take to get to my ships stashed in the corner of the map. Their gunboat manages to pass through them and then starts getting shot at by my stuff, so that's fine. Then following behind comes the corvette. This one moves close enough to actually set a mine off. Although it doesn't noticeably do anything, it grabs a couple of kills on their crew. What I was hoping was, well, for a hull breach and a sink ideally, but pretty much it does nothing. I guess it can't do anything, otherwise gunboats would be overpowered because you just spam mines all over the entire map or something. Anyway, I'm going to send my two gunboats forward to duel with their one gunboat, but in the process I end up presenting my broadside to the enemy corvette. That's a bad idea because our gunboats are relatively easy to destroy. They're also quite easy to rout because they have a very small crew. A couple of hits takes out a large proportion of their crew, so they lose their morale fast. We can use that to our advantage. Right here I used one of my gunboats to move in and board the enemy gunboat. Because the crew shot the enemy crew on the way in, they just routed instantly upon contact. And that's that part of the fight over. After that victory, I for some reason thought it would be fun to charge my two gunboats at the enemy corvette. The corvette blasts away at them with its vastly superior accuracy, range and gun count. So things don't go very well, and one of our gunboats is routed. What I was planning to do, I think, is get in behind the enemy corvette and just gradually shoot them with one gun until they died. Here's a while later, basically. I ended up sending my corvette to try and board the enemy corvette, and as we closed into point blank range, we kind of got stuck on the line on the edge of the map here and just dueled with our cannons, blasting each other at close range, doing massive damage to both sides. But the enemy took more damage since they don't shoot quite as efficiently or have the micro, and in the end we win that naval battle. We'll just repair our ships and then go back to our original plan. Doesn't really change anything because we're not ready to move out yet. Now my neighbours are allied to me, the neighbours to my north, but unfortunately they won't trade with me, and you can see that basically everybody hates us. That's our starting diplomacy setup. I think this might be part of the Master of Strategy mod to make the game harder. We have this minus 80 relations with everyone or something like that due to some past grievances, although that might just be because I'm playing as the Saga. The Saga are the barbaric faction who have been interacting with the West during the seclusion period of Japan's history. So perhaps we're just seen as being bad for that reason, I don't actually know. I was pretty annoyed about my ally not trading with me, because I was like, if even someone I'm allied to won't trade with me, we're probably not going to be able to trade with anyone, and that's going to make the finance side of the game a bit harder. Then in the next turn, my ally got attacked by someone or other, presumably some wars going on at the northern end of Kyushu, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to break this alliance because I definitely don't want to be involved in the war, and I don't like my ally anymore. They were mean to me, so we get rid of them. Once spring breaks, We are ready to go. My fleet's ready and an army's ready. That army is pretty much just a ton of spear levy and a few better units like Yarikachi and Naginata Ronin. No gun units really. We've just unlocked the ability to recruit gun units, and I'll start making a few. Their main job will be to deal with this situation. You can see we've got this massive crime and inequality thing that's taking over our pro or anti-emperor sentiment bar. This is another Master of Strategy thing. I remember this happening in my regular Shogun 2 campaign where you had unrest as the mysterious new religion that takes over. Essentially, it's just a thing to make managing public order harder. You can see this area, Nagasaki port, has a criminal den, which is causing all of this criminality. You can't destroy the den, so we just have to have the criminality. At some point we might be able to overpower the criminals with pro-emperor sentiment to make them go away, but for now, we're just going to face rebellions there, but ignoring that, let's get into the action. Our fleet arrives at Tsushima. Now what I want to do is land the army. This proves very hard. A couple of presses on disembark army doesn't actually do anything. I accidentally bombard the port. What I thought you could do is capture the port and then make your army go out through it to still have its movement points. In the end, just had to wait until the next turn, then landed the army without the port, and I was able to then move forward and besiege the nearby town immediately. It's not technically a town because in this mod all the towns are split into 3 parts, so this is part of the Tsushima province. And the balance bar is pretty even despite our massive numbers because we are just spamming trash melee infantry, and of course the enemy have fortifications to defend themselves. As you can see, I deployed too close to the wall, so the first thing that happens is a massive volley of gunshots hits my spear levy line. Also, we blow up part of the wall instantly. The corners of these forts have really low health for some reason, so they die instantly to my artillery. And as the disgusting Western barbarian-like faction, we do start with a nice Western unit, the Parrot guns. So they're a powerful artillery unit from the mid-game that will allow us to be more effective in siege attacks because we can gradually blow up the walls. Because the gunners started firing at my Parrot guns, I decided to place the spear levy back in front of the enemy so that they will get shot instead of our far more valuable artillery crew, thus buying the artillery crew more time to start blowing up those wall pieces, because we're going to have the classic Shogun 2 effect where destroying a bit of the wall kills everything in a radius around that area. Although the guns aren't safe at the moment because there are wall cannons on this map, so bits of the wall are shooting out at us gradually over the battle. Handily, they're very inaccurate and not very powerful, so even though we're sitting right in the line of fire of some of them, our guns are going to be able to safely survive and blow up some enemy walls. And there's an example of the effect. If you haven't seen it, really weird. It kind of shoots everyone up into the sky for some reason. But yes, that will allow us to massively thin out the strength of the defenders there before we send in the spear levies. Meanwhile, our better troops, our Yarikachi and our Naginata-kachi, are getting in there to start capturing some ungarrisoned parts of the wall. Once they go over though, they're going to be locked into melees for the rest of the battle really, because here the enemy are defending the stairs down to their capture point with Yarikachi and some matchlock-kachi, both units that are decent in melee. Plus, this entire map, the entire interior of the fort I should say, is considered the last bastion of the settlement, so that means nothing can rout on the enemy side. This means we have to kill absolutely everyone to win the battle or take the capture point, and taking capture points is harder in this mod than in vanilla. Overall then, we're going to take much greater losses than we otherwise would fighting this sort of force in a field battle. That's a shame, but that's just the nature of doing a siege attack. You can see my spear levies are now taking out the survivors of the artillery attacks. I've also deployed my matchlock-kachi in this section of the castle, and they catch the flank of some line infantry trying to move into position, hit them with a volley and then hit them with some swords as well, and already like a third of them die early on, so that's going to be a nice fight. Meanwhile, some of my spear levies are being shot to pieces by other line infantry units, and we're just letting them do that. I've got some Yarikachi moving in for the rear attack there, and some others are staying back to finish off survivors. These fights are going to pretty much last the entire battle, as I said, because they don't rout, and because things like the Yarikachi are quite good. We're just going to have to trade with them and try to outnumber them, eventually killing them over time. Here's me trying to get those line infantry into melee with a nice slow charge by the exhausted spear levy. Doesn't really do anything, although it does stop them from getting shot, so I guess that's good for them. Here's the real move, the Arikachi gradually coming in from behind. We also saw some of the enemy line infantry start coming out of the castle, so I deployed my 2 generals to attack them with cavalry. This looked pretty effective. One thing I might note about this mod is that your stamina in battle goes down really fast, so you might note that everything is exhausted all the time after very short combats or short amounts of running. That just seems to be how this mod is, which will favour ranged units a lot more than melee units. Probably a downside for our current army build, suffice to say. We're cutting now to ages later. We killed everybody in the castle. It took a while, and obviously we lost a lot of men. But it could be done because we had numbers on our side at that point. We lost about a third of our army in total, a little bit nasty, and in exchange we're going to be taking a third of Tsushima's territory. Probably not the best thing because we wanted to come away from this fight healthy to do more fights. You can see to the north, the main part of Tsushima is garrisoned with a half stack and has a half stack garrison so that there's a full stack there. Meaning our full stack at 2/3 strength will be at a disadvantage if we attack. I also noted my daimyo is dishonourable, which is damaging public order, and that dishonour is from betraying that alliance which I so flippantly did earlier. The main solution there is to this is either to vassalize people to increase our honour, or to have that guy conveniently die and maybe someone else could become the daimyo. We'll work on that later. For now we need him alive, if only to use him as a cavalry unit. Back home at Nagasaki though, that big rebellion that was inevitable happens. It's a whole bunch of spear levy and a whole bunch of wooden cannons. I've recruited a few things and clustered everything here at Nagasaki port, so we do have an army to defend and it's an even balance bar. Those wooden cannons were a worry because while wooden cannons technically suck, they can blow up castle walls and kill things that way. Luckily they were all deployed together and unguarded. I had put some of my troops outside the castle hoping I might get a chance to rush the cannons down before they fired. We're pretty far away, but I'm going for it. You can also see I initially kept my men away from the walls to avoid the cannons killing them. Then I deployed them close and immediately fell prey to that very thing. I deployed them in here to start shooting at these enemy spear levy units because instead of attacking the walls, they're chasing the guys they sent after the cannons. That's going to be kind of useful because it stops the enemy attacking us for a bit. But still, the attack on the cannons is going to be a bit difficult. Meanwhile, on the south side of the map, we've got a whole bunch of spear levy just coming over the wall to fight with some of my spear mob, and a few gunners are supporting them. We arrive at the cannons with our samurai garrison, but we can't get them all into melee at once because we're only a small unit, so we can stop a few of them firing, the others will keep firing, and ultimately I think this was a waste, because the wooden cannons don't have very much ammunition, and it took so long to run over here. They've pretty much used up all their ammunition by the time we get them into melee, so we're not preventing much damage to the walls. And the spear levy are going to rear attack my samurai and take them out here, especially because we used up all of our stamina to get over here as well. They're just going to rout and die, but that's not going to be the case for these spear mob, a unit that's even worse than spear levy. They can't rout now that fight to the death thing is working in our favour, so they're going to gradually exchange lives with the enemy's spear levy coming over the wall and take a load of them out. There was some silver lining to the loss of my samurai out there, because not only did it cause a few of the wooden cannon crews to come and jump into the melee, which will get themselves killed, but 2 of the spear levy units started chasing the routing survivors off the map, meaning they're not attacking the castle and have effectively been defeated. Overall then, 1 samurai unit for 2 levy units isn't such a bad trade. Meanwhile, the guys that are coming to the wall can now be shot at freely. I rush guns to get into position and start firing. These now exhausted spear levy are going to slowly move towards the wall at a light jog and just be shot down all the way and get defeated, so that is all good. Meanwhile, at the other attack, we lose all of the guys defending the walls and the enemy break inside the castle. I set up here a line of guns to push them back, and a quick volley does rout the first unit that comes over. The second unit now can use the reload cycle to get in close. We just about start firing at them as they make melee contact. You can see the game stuttering there. That's because I was taking screenshots when I was playing, and it makes the replays stutter when you watch them back. But anyway, just watch out for that. Now then, we're just going to stand here and try not to die. Doesn't matter too much if this army defending here dies, we just want to kill the enemy and then we'll have a chance to get our garrison back and replenish the regular units. I can also now bring over pretty much everything to focus on this fight. So it's going to start going in our favour as we fight up the steps with melee stuff. Our line infantry rout the guys in front of them and then blast them to pieces as they fall back, turning that rout into a shatter pretty quickly. And that area of the castle is ultimately held, and ages later, the guys who were chasing my routers come back, but by the time they're back, we're ready for them with guns outside and inside the castle to just blast at them. Everything chain routes at this point, and that's the end of the battle. We successfully hold on to Nagasaki port, and while we did lose a load of stuff, a lot of that stuff will be garrison things that just get necromanced back to life instantly, and the other units have plenty of time to replenish. We get a mission to capture Tsushima. Well, we're doing that anyway, so thanks for that. And on Tsushima we have a bit of an opportunity. Their army guarding the main castle came and tried to set an ambush outside, and we spotted it. So we can attack them here and then go on to attack the castle, theoretically easier than fighting everything at once in the castle. However, it's still a balanced setup because our army is in damaged condition and we still lack good gunnery units to use. We'll be comfortable for the very first moments of the battle because we can sit back and fire the parrot guns. I can use shrapnel shot there to grab some lines of kills. If I'd fired that shot like half a second later, I probably would have hit their general with it. Very inconvenient. Anyway, now we just sit back and grab a few more kills as the enemy advance. They do make a play. They send saber cav to both flanks. However, on both flanks I've got our better melee infantry who are also anti-cav infantry. So the saber cav move isn't going to do all that much. We take them down. Meanwhile, for our centre, we're going to want to close with the enemy because they have a line of line infantry and we don't. We just want to run at them. Because the enemy have melee infantry though, it's not so bad. The melee infantry run in front of the line infantry and block their line of sight. So not much shooting actually occurs. Bit of naval support via air grabs a couple of kills. And now it's time for a clash. The two sides are just going to run at each other. This fight here is not going to be good. We're being attacked by Yarikachi and we're using spear levy. Probably not the best. Need our flanking units to fold back in. And yes, it's mostly a spear levy on spear levy clash. Looks like we've defeated the cav out on the flanks and just need better micro to get those units back into the fight right now. Micro is a bit of an issue. We've got some units doing nothing around the field. I was probably focusing on this move around the right end of our army, where I'm trying to get the enemy's gunners into melee before they get up to no good. Those matchlock Kachi though are probably okay against spear levy, not going to be the best fight. The other gunners aren't really doing much, so that's a nice saving grace in this fight. They're barely affecting things. Although maybe they don't need to, we're straight up losing the melee. Our left wing is already dead and our centre's dying rapidly. This is partially due to the fact we're on hard difficulty, as I later found by experimentation. Also perhaps due to the fact our artillery are friendly firing, but that should be killing the enemy as well. Yes, I did an experiment and found that on hard difficulty you lose 100 men for every 50 you kill in a straight equal spear levies fight, so the enemy are roughly twice as good as they're meant to be. And because of that, a few battles after this one I actually reduced the difficulty back to normal. I'll try to remember when it was and point that out. You might see things go a little bit differently in melees. Right now I'm trying to get the enemy's gunners to not shoot at my cavalry, but our guys have no stamina, so they're very slow in arriving to lock them down. And here you can see a nice volley goes out over the main fight and starts hitting our commander, our faction leader. He's too badass and he's too Western influenced by the looks of things. He stands on his horse and tries to baseball bat the bullets away. Maybe it worked, he does survive somehow. Our guys on the flanks are now gradually coming into the fight, but they're so agonizingly slow with that low stamina that the fights are kind of going to be over before we deploy our flanking units in any useful manner. A shame. I've also got my secondary general here in a bit of a dangerous situation. I was rear attacking the matchlock Kachi and that went well, but the line infantry then charged in for a melee fight. That is better than them just standing there and shooting in, which would have killed our general instantly, so thanks to the AI for that inferior move. As for the main fight, some stuff is still alive on both sides. Everything's kind of dying all over the place because our artillery is shooting into it, of course. But not looking ideal for us. We've certainly lost this army for all intents and purposes, but we still haven't lost the battle. Our second general, though, did die in that melee out there, so that's a shame. At least our real general's still alive. And now we start to turn things in our favour just because the enemy begin to rout inexplicably. I think army losses might be stacking up at this stage because everybody is dead and we have just a bit more morale so we can hold on. So we rear attack the remaining blob in the centre. That ends the fight. And here is the result. We lost more than half of our army, including an officer and a unit of Matchlock Kachi. This leaves us in a not very good position because there's still a decent number of units in the garrison of the nearby castle. We have a lot less than it looks like we have because all these units are dead. Maybe we effectively have about 4 or 5 units available, and I wasn't confident that attacking the castle would be a good idea. We can grab 1 turn of replenishment by moving us slightly back into our territory before attacking, but as you might have seen there, it takes something like 30 turns to replenish a unit in this mod. Replenishment is super nerfed. That means we need to recruit new units rather than replenishing the ones we have realistically. But that's going to be a slow process as well. In the next turn, the enemy have moved their remaining troops to a position that actually stops me attacking the castle. So I'd have to go and fight them again in another field battle to break through. And this army's so dead, I did not like the prospects there. Instead, I'm going to start merging some of the deader units, and I'm going to sit in the town and try to get some more troops together. The issue is that with my 1 town recruiting against their 2, they can out-recruit me, plus this town takes 2 turns to recruit even Spear Levy. It's not that good. So, bit of an awkward situation, although we can use the town's defences to our advantage as we sit here. Overall, seems I've got myself into something of a stalemate there, and then things get worse because the Fukue declare war on me. This is the clan that controls Goto Island, the island to the west of our starting region, and the island that's closer to our starting region as well. So now we're going to be in trouble back home, and as you can see, Tsushima are trying to cause a bit of trouble for us on their island. So I'm going to leave things here for this part. Looks like this campaign is going to be much harder than my recent Troy campaign. Might need to use some actual strategies to win this one. Going to be a gritty grind where I guess I'll have to become the master of strategy to win. Maybe that's what was intended. Join me in part 2 to see how I do.